Guys, welcome to the podcast. We're back. I'm sitting here with Pelly. Welcome, man. Welcome to my living room.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Pleasure.
It's good to be here.
So I met Pelly at Reverb this year in Wisconsin, and we vibed, and I was like, yo, we got to come through the house, do a podcast, shoot some photos. You want to tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Pelly, Pelly, and I am just an artist by nature and by birth. You know, since I really came into this world, that's how my mind has always operated and thought. It took me years to discover how to bring that into fruition. I started out just writing as a young person and really into poetry. Eventually, life kind of bobbed and weaved and led me into applying that poetry to music, and that's where I really found my footing and how I could create and express myself in art came through that musical format.
Is that, do you feel like that mic's being weird? And we're back. Sorry about that, guys. We had a little audio issue.
We're back.
We're back. So we were talking about how you're an artist. How did you get into making music? Because you go by like a rapper, or what's your genre, you think? Or are you kind of all over?
You know what? I'd consider myself, first and foremost, before any kind of title in music, as a songwriter. You know, I write songs in different ways across different genre bending that I love to be a part of. I do come at it from a hip-hop perspective and ethos, because that's where, and especially just rapping and then the art of just spoken word is really where I came from, poetry to spoken word. And I would do like open mic nights and spoken word events and things like that, and I was always interested in that. As the same time, I was getting into hip-hop, and hip-hop set my mind free for just verbal expression. How can you do this? How can you put it together like a math equation in a verse? And then, so ultimately I did kind of start under the rapping moniker, and then I started songwriting more and more, and like, how can I write a good hook, and how can I write a good bridge? How can I write for like an acoustic song? How can I write for a trap song? How can I write for a pop song? I'm even writing some country leaning ones, but the hip hop has become this genre bending unifier, which I just love, because it really does unify and stitch together every genre in a way that most other genres could never hope to do. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it has to do with pop. I think pop culture and the way that it just kind of evolved. It just like it got its fingerprints in everything at this point. You know, like I don't know how old you are, but I'm 30. I'm 38. So I graduated high school in 2005, and man, hip hop was such an important part of my life for so long. And then you know, I moved to New York City actually when I was like 21 years old, and then I lived in Bed-Stuy, and that's when I got really into Biggie Smalls and like that whole, and you know, that's older than me.
Golden
and
era.
So then I really,
90s,
you know,
bro.
I grew up with a really heavy influence in hip hop, but then now that I'm getting a little older, I still love it. I still also love trap, but it really depends who you're around.
I
Because sometimes I like that angry and that energy, and then other times, like now I find myself liking actually like weird country music and all kinds of like other, just the spectrum, you know, you like finding as an artist digging in and finding something new to look at, you know.
I think those are some of the most beautiful open minds that are open to expression in all these different genres. And personally, and I share the same thoughts and feelings on music. Like, I don't try to behold myself to one thing or one genre. I personally enjoy everything across the spectrum, all the way from like classical to like alternative music and Celtic music and cultural music from Asia and Mongolia and stuff. Like, I'll enjoy music across every spectrum pretty much.
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, it's like food. Like, I don't want to pick just one. Like, exactly. I want the like what mood am I in? You know what I mean?
Great
like,
analogy. It's like just like food, and I'm a huge foodie, and I like flavor and color and texture. And all that.
Well, music feeds the soul. I feel like my life is actually moving in a good direction usually if I'm finding new music.
Yeah.
It's also with going to the gym, which I'm doing a bad job of right now.
Yep, moving the body, and music can move the mind, and I think that's two beautiful ways to stimulate yourself.
Totally.
Sure.
What kind of stuff do you do? Do you work with a producer, or are you producing stuff yourself? I heard you say you were a songwriter.
Yeah, so I don't do basically any of my own production right now. It is something that I do want to practice and get into. I know it's going to take some time, some viable time to really amass skill in that, where I can compare with people that are making me beats right now. Right now, I have worked with other producers to produce things for me and kind of customize beats and things like that. And I have good ideas on melodies or cadence and things like that. But so I think I have a mind for it, but it isn't something I have applied specifically to production. So I leave it to the geniuses that have for 5, 7, 10, 15 years of their life. And they're just incredible at it, right? Yeah. So I work with producers all over the world. I work with producers in Brazil and Italy and Canada and the US and, you know, stretching across the world, India, Azerbaijan, like very interesting takes and talent from around the world that people, you know, they put their stamp on things, and they come at it mostly from whatever genre they like, and then I affiliate it, or they affiliate it with like a hip hop beat or a stance, and then it attracts me. So
do you find it hard without spending a lot of money?
Find it hard to like
work
find
with
beats?
Like good producers.
Oh,
So I'll tell you a little bit about my music background, because I've worked in music as an outsider kind of. So when I was living in LA, I got hired by a company called Milk and Honey. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're a management company, and I think the guy's actually from Wisconsin who started it. But they hired me to do creative direction for this pop star kid named Beal, who's like this Brazilian pop star. Okay. And so he had like 6 million followers. I was kind of attracted to that. I was like, all right, we can maybe do something with this kid. He's cool. He's like cool looking. He turned out to be a fucking nightmare. Oh, man. Like for 4 months, we did nothing but party. And then I literally was like not making enough money. And I didn't see it anymore after 4 months with him. Yeah. And we had a really good time, and that's actually I was at Rolling Loud in Miami when I saw The Dragon, which was a psychedelic experience that kind of changed my life, and I ended up diving into more like learning about my addiction issues and like how I was over drinking and over partying for like 90% of my 20s, and then it really changed the direction of my life in my 30s, and I kind of attributed it to like hanging out with the wrong people in music. But then I also have another friend, Karishma, shout out Karishma, who worked on her album, and I helped her put her single out, Higher Love it was called. I think now it's got like 200,000 plays on it. She hasn't quite put the whole album out, and it's been a few years now, so I keep telling her she should get it out.
Oh man, that's a touchy subject with me too, because I am notorious for it, and so many of my incredibly talented artist friends are as well. And Gary Vee said this famously, and it's always stuck with me. He said it a few years ago on one of his...
I love Gary Vee.
Yeah, I love Gary Vee. On one of his socials, and he said, I think he was referencing his artistic friends like that he had with Nipsey Hussle and Lil Yachty, and he sat down and had conversations with these guys, and I think he was actually in the room with them, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, artists, you are not in the content creation business. You're in the content releasing business. Yeah. That is what makes you your money. Yeah. You can't actually make any money or get any momentum in the business that this industry offers without releasing it, right? So many artists, especially amateur to professional, but I mean, obviously professionals, they have a different through line of getting this done quicker and faster and more efficient.
A lot of bigger team usually.
Bigger teams and things like that, sure. Yeah. But it can be a really overwhelming, anxious process just to get something out. But ultimately, that is the end goal if you're going to be in this for business. Now, if you're going to do it for leisure, if you're going to do it as a passion project, if you're just going to create as therapy, like this is where this started for me as an artist, like back to your original question, I'm going to do this whether I make money or not. Luckily, now I have functions and ways as a business to make money. And keep garnering and building success in this. But if you have to literally take the time and make the time to carve out a space for that project or that music to be released, otherwise it will never generate what you're hoping for business success at least.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, personal success, that's different. But business success, to Gary V's point, you have to put it out.
Yeah. Well, that's like going back to Steve Jobs too. And his big quote was like, great artists ship.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have to, you got to put it out. That's actually right there. There's my first book that I ever put out. And that took me like a year to make. I shot 100 people for it. And like, I had to keep remembering that. Cause
Angles?
Yeah. I that one's like really beat. You can look at it if you want.
Oh man, I love that.
It's a little beat up. It's my very first edition. But I kept having to remember, like, just put it out. Just put it. Even if it's, as long as you're proud of it and you're not going to look at it later and be like, this is garbage.
Right. I mean, you have to, that's the other thing. You run into this vetting of yourself over and over again. And then if you're too familiar with the work, then you start becoming biased, like negatively biased against your own work. It's like, oh, it's crap. And like you heard something or you seen something 100 times and you're like, oh, no one's going to like this. But you become your own worst enemy, kind of being too familiar with your work. So you want to be intimate with your work without being overly hyperly critical of it. So you can't get it in your own way.
100%. Do you
I do that
do you ever do any Rick Rubin?
Do I listen to Rick Rubin?
Yeah, like any of his stuff, like his book, The Creative Act.
I haven't actually dove into his book, but anything that Rick Rubin does as far as content or wisdom, I'm always willing to dive into and look into, because that man, the way his mind works and his approach to artistry and life, so unique and powerful.
100%.
And that's the reason artists gravitate towards him, because he's beautiful mind.
I mean, in the end, he's kind of just pushing, like, tuning into higher consciousness and not worrying about what's going to happen, and like just creating things for the love of creating them. And like when you do that, you make your best things. And
correct.
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
But I feel like
consciousness, that's a big subject,
being an artist these days, especially a music artist, though, is just not that easy, because now, you know, it's so flooded online, and then it's like you want to create art, but then you're forced to create content. And then I guess just trying to find your own unique voice that's not being done already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a big one. Oh, man. So the way I think about that, I always come back to the same thing. If you want to be an artist that isn't doing something that hasn't been done already, the only way you'll be able to carve any kind of differentiation in that niche or a niche that you want to create is to be absolutely in tune with yourself as much as possible and be uniquely crafting alongside that and release alongside that threshold of who you actually are. Because if you do that, eventually you'll get so good at it that you will just carve whatever is different into the world itself. Totally. You just got to keep at it, right? It's not going to be perfect at first. It's going to feel like you might even emulate other people more than you want to, because, you know, the influences that we're around, the biases that we pick up on in life. Like, I have plenty of artists that people say that I might sound like, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't, I'm not trying to sound like them.
Sure.
And maybe subconsciously they are people that I just attracted to the way they're doing the art form.
100%.
And then I get better and better at doing it myself. Yeah. And eventually now people know, oh, Pelly is different than like Big Sean or Logic in the way when he spits a 16 sometimes or something like that. It's very different, right? So
it's a good time for intellectual rappers, though.
It is. It is. I think it's a time that everyone needs in rap, because, man, we're in the age of information. There's a lot of information out there. People are kind of flipping over a new page right now, I feel, in society. We
people are smarter than they were given credit for, I think, like all around.
Correct.
And now people are like, actually, I can take in information.
Correct. And there's so much information that no one wants their time or energy wasted with the wrong information or with things that just don't feed into a good spiritual energy. So I'm of the belief personally that in any kind of industry, in any kind of expression, if you can do that with positive spiritual energy, you will get a more long-lasting positive result as an artist and with your audience. Because
100%.
Yeah, who wants to be gaslit and bullshitted and lied to, and just be yourself? You know, like, you can't hide it. This is the internet. You know, this is a new age of information, and it's a new age of sharing it. own it. And I would just listen to podcasts on the way. Like Rogan was talking about it. Like he's wrong plenty of times in things that he says and with guests he has, and you own that bullshit. But when you dig your heels in and you double down on something that is a known, has known opposition or known lie or a different piece of information that upends yours, I mean, if you can't critically think and take a good look at that and be open to changing your mind, your opinion, then you're doing everyone a disservice, including yourself.
Totally.
People sniff that out right the way too. They're like, oh, he's not genuine, or she's not genuine, or people want to follow people that are genuine. Our leaders, our artists, are
more than ever. I mean, it shows in the numbers. You can't deny it with like who's the biggest podcasters, and like you have to be true to like who you are. Otherwise, people are like, or you have to live a lie too. I mean, I guess there are successful people that are preaching things that aren't them, I think.
Yeah.
These influencer types, or like these guys that go to the gym and they pretend they're like super Christian or something, and they're not really. They're just like trying to hit a market. Right. But I think in order to have that happiness in your life, you have to kind of be inherently who you are. Otherwise, you're like living a lie, Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean that we, pen people in like, this is who you were in 2015. And this is who you've been the whole time, even though this person's been working to change, or they've obviously done steps and changed their opinion or changed their conversations. We have to approach this from a standpoint of everyone is human. We are all growing and evolving. Doesn't matter what age you are, because we've proven now with science, neuroplasticity never stops. The brain can expand at 70 and learn a new thing. 100%. And understand how to become
in
different.
fact, those are the healthy brains.
Yes. And the ones that are seeking that evolution, that change, that growth within themselves, and they want to manifest that externally, those are the healthiest people and the healthiest brains, the people that live longer because they're trying to build something in the world still.
Yeah. They have a reason. I mean,
not just existing.
Yeah, existing, you don't have enough firing. Because the psyche is such a fragile thing, Yeah. It really is in the end.
If you don't, the minute you stop growing is the minute you start dying, right? That's a whole thing that people say. Like living is, the definition of living is
I'm going to be asking my grandkids for the LSD. Yeah. Be like, hey, come on. Come on, guys. Where's the party?
Where is it?
What do you know? You know anything about Ibogaine?
Ibogaine, yes.
I want to do Ibogaine.
That's very familiar. That's okay. Ibogaine is what the vets were going to Mexico to do to help with their PTSD.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it's like it's a psychedelic effect similar to like a bomb like ayahuasca.
Yeah, I think from what I heard, it's like the worst day of your life, and it's like 19 hours or something like this. But then apparently once you're through it actually, the governor of Texas was just on JRE talking about this and he thinks it's the most powerful medicine in history right now, and that nothing compares to it. And they have all these studies about the PTSD, and then not only PTSD, but also Alzheimer's and dementia, and then also all these different addictions. And so like I'm addicted to nicotine, and I quit nicotine for 2 years. And then when I was moving back to Wisconsin, I didn't want to just smoke weed the whole way. So then I was like, all right, let me buy a vape. And then I've been hooked for 2 years since. So now I'm like, all right, I'm actually going to do a podcast once you leave talking about how I'm quitting. And then tomorrow I'm literally getting off nicotine.
Good for you, man.
I know. I've been talking about it for so long, and then I booked this trip to LA, and it was super stressful. I had to organize 40 people, and then 6 people came with me. And I was just like, this is just not the time for me to quit nicotine. I'm like, I'm going to wait and do it like first thing in the New Year's.
I can't recalibrate my brain during all of this right now.
No, I know. And I know that I think all my addictions kind of come from like more childhood trauma type situations. But then it's like, if that's all you know, it's like all you know. Yeah. Right. So like the more you learn about addiction, you're like, all right, well, this is probably trauma based and that kind of stuff. And then
everything's got a root. All behaviors we do as a root.
Yeah. Well, so I'm interested in the plant medicine, and I'm like, maybe I have a friend who was a sniper in the military. He used to work for, we went to Brazil together and worked with Rihanna for 10 days on a shoot.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw those pictures on Instagram.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, we did.
So that was in Brazil.
We did Vogue Brazil with Rihanna.
Cool. That's amazing.
That was a really special trip. I worked with Rihanna one other time in New York City with Damien Hirst too, which I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a crazy.
Yep.
I used to work for a pretty wild fashion photographer named Mariano Vivanco.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got to tell me about those experiences on or off camera. I'm
Yeah, maybe off, because I feel like every podcast right
Yeah,
now I keep
yeah.
telling my like,
Reintegrating that.
yeah.
Yeah, we can get in a different subject, but that's very interesting and seeing that side of things. And that was like when 10 years ago, that was like when Rihanna was still doing music.
Yeah, this was like in her height.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I got out. I'm actually next week. I'm doing my 20 years of photography podcast with my photo teacher, because I graduated in 05, and then it's 2025 right now, and I started photography in high school. So like,
congratulations, man.
now
That's
I'm
quite a
like,
career.
all right, well, shit, I'm getting old.
That's quite a career. Hey, I mean,
I just got out.
aging is
got
something you can't
lucky.
avoid. Getting old, I feel like that's a choice.
Yeah,
I personally feel like that, and especially as someone, I've worked in industries where I had to be around like a lot of elderly people. And what I can tell you from seeing hundreds of sample sizes of people between 50 and 90 years old is that age is just a number, and getting old is a choice for a lot of reasons. Now, you can't help but to age. Like, your body is going to move through linear time and do its process.
Totally.
But your mind and your spirit and how you approach those things and your consciousness, that doesn't have to dull in the same way. In fact, it can expand.
Totally.
And that's a really cool, comforting notion to know as you age, you can just get better at the things that actually matter in this world, because everything that actually matters really has nothing to do with the physical material world. It's all going away. It all fades away. You replace it. But the actual conscious, mental, spiritual world, those are the pinpoints that last throughout history.
100%. And that's part of the reason I'm even back in Wisconsin now after being out for like 15 years, was like I had that experience with the dragon, and I kind of had, it helped me basically. Essentially, I'll tell you the story short.
Yeah,
but the long story short is I did a lot of MDMA, and MDMA actually is a psychedelic.
Yep, I've done it a couple times.
I did it for like 3 days straight. And I had done a lot of MDMA in my day.
Those are bombs.
So yeah, we were at Rolling Loud with artist passes, having too much fun. Right. And then in Miami, where like there's so many grease bags that are just like feeding you shit.
Yeah.
Like if you're in that circle, it's just not the best world to be in.
It can get chaotic.
I was with the wrong people, and we were doing too many drugs. And then one night I went to bed and I blasted off in my mind, and I met an entity that was in the shape of like a Chinese dragon made out of stars. It was really wild, but it told me everything that I was doing wrong in my life. And it was like, if this is the path you're on, you are in big trouble.
Wow.
And then
that sounds like an angel.
Later on, I looked it up, and it's actually has something to do with like an ego death. And I was like, I had a lot of success in my 20s, and I was kind of running it amok in my early 30s, because I had finally, long story short, I did New York, London, LA. And then by the time I got to LA, I had filled 3 passports. I worked in 14 countries. I lived in Europe for 3 years. And so I was like kind of on my high horse, and then, but my life was a mess, because my mentor was also kind of an alcoholic, and we partied a lot, and so I built a lot of bad habits. But right after that experience with the dragon, my whole life shifted, and I like started.
What was this again? It was in Rolling Loud, but what year?
I think it was like 2000, probably 19.
Okay.
No, it must have been 2000. Maybe 18.
Okay, so like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a massive shift that your life.
Well, my life kind of collapsed. My life kind of. I like started freelancing for the first time in like 6 years, and like it just became a whole different universe that I was living in. And then.
So how did you approach not just life, but your art differently then? You said you started freelancing, so you had a different opinion of like, you were at one point you're living this fast life, high life, you're traveling externally, things are moving fast paced, they feel really validating, you're getting affirmations left and right, but internally you don't have those same affirmations. Internally you're kind of feeling like things are chaotic. Yeah. And then you have this turn shift to the tables with this ego death. Your ego gets called out, and you call it out yourself, and then you make a conscious choice to shift. Where did that start affecting you, not only like physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally? And then like career-wise, like
Well,
expression-wise?
I think ego deaths don't happen overnight.
Absolutely not.
And I think that
I can
like
attest to that.
I think that the knowledge comes to you over time if you like let it and you're willing to open up to like I'm doing things wrong.
100%.
And so while like one of the things with me is like I moved to New York in my early like 21 years old and I was like I'm only working in photography. I will not get another job outside of photography. Well, like I had a lot of success in that, and like fast forward to LA where like I was kind of struggling to figure out like how, because when I moved to LA for a full-time job at a studio, I did that job for 2 years and then they got sold. It was BB, the women's wear brand. So I ran their entire LA studio. Nice. And then they got sold. They laid the whole LA factory off. And then I went freelance. I started doing a startup. And then it's just like, how do you make the bills work? And then when COVID hit, that's when like, you know, fast forward like a year, I'm still kind of doing the damage that I know I should fix, but I haven't quite fixed yet. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I mean, we all in those small ways too. It's just, can you start mitigating that more and more until you find efficiency that works?
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, I felt like my life was getting really on track and then COVID hit. And then once COVID hit, it was like a whole new path for me again. Because I got out of LA and I didn't think I'd be gone as long as I was, and then I just never went back.
So let me ask you this: Do you like what LA does for you environmentally? How it makes you feel? You know, the pathways and connections that it sets up for you. Do you think those have always been beneficial? Obviously, there's been, you know, partying and things that have gone on too far in your life, but do you
never
find
that far? But like, it was damaging for me, not other people or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Got you. So, because I always hear these stories of artists and aspiring like creatives that go out to LA and New York, and they can get lost in the sauce in a lot of ways, 100%. Right? And I got friends that have gone out there and done it themselves, try to live out there for a while, work out there for a while, and man, they come back. No one comes back without stories. I can tell you that. No one.
That's the best part.
And that is part of it, the cool experience of living life. It's good, bad, ugly, and in between. It's sometimes it's great, you know, and I think that is part of the human experience. But I guess my overarching question is, do you believe that like places like Los Angeles and New York are essential for artists to go to as far as for like a significant amount of time? Or is it just one of those things that's like a roller coaster ride you don't necessarily need to go on, but you'll get some you know, highs and lows real quick from it?
Well, I think, you know, in my day and age, it was really important. Now I think it just depends on what you're doing, right? Like if you want
the internet changed everything.
Let me tell you this. If you want to be at the highest level of photography that you can possibly work at in America, you need to be in New York. Because all the people in New York fly to LA for the jobs. Like, got you. That's just kind of still how it works. If you want to be working with one of those guys, like you need to be there. Now, are a few of them in LA now? Yes, but then even the international people are all coming to New York. So I think there's a huge benefit in that. Yeah. I did it for 10 years. Yeah. So it's like it's once you kind of have the connections where you like, now I feel like I do have the flexibility where I can leave and come back in 4 months and I'll be busy every day I'm there.
And 10 years, that's longevity. Because some people go to those spaces and they're like, I can't make this work for a year. 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah. So. Well, going back to what you were saying about LA and how I feel about LA, the thing about LA is an ego-driven city. So everything in LA is about ego. Yeah. I don't care what anybody says. Like it's an ego-driven city. So like for me, the hard thing is like I'm a middle-class kid who like didn't have that much money. Like when I lived in Europe, I was getting taxed at 42% by the UK government. So like even though I was supposed to be making money, I really wasn't. Right. And then as soon as I left that, I was still over partying, you know, and then going freelance. It's not like I was rich or anything like that. Right. But then I'm cool enough and I have a talent enough and I'm good with people enough that like I can get myself into situations and I always have been able to do that. That's how I got the job to go to Europe. And you know, I've been around a lot of high profile, powerful people, so I'm not like weird when I'm around them. Yeah, exactly. Right. You know, and so I just tried to keep up, you know. I'm also a dude and I'm straight, and so I have like hot girlfriends, and like I always would run into the problem of like there's some millionaire trying to compete for her attention, you know what I mean, and you're trying to like be cool, and it's like you just find yourself, if if you're letting the ego like run the ship, which is what I was kind of doing.
It'll run as far as
so
it can.
now, like with the knowledge I have, I'm like, yeah, you can go there and make it work for sure. But you have to be like, if you're not, the city is meant to eat you up. It will like the system wants to eat you up.
So that you gotta check yourself before you wreck yourself, or allow yourself to be wrecked.
Yeah,
in situations like that. That's mostly, and I just want to get your 2 cents from it, because every single person that I have close or intimate relationship with, that I can talk to like a friend, that has been out there and experienced it on the ground for years or months, but especially like years, people that have been out there for a while, I'm always interested to hear their takes, and they always kind of gravitate towards that summary.
Really? I wonder,
ego-driven.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a Wisconsin thing too, though. Sometimes,
probably,
because I wonder, it's all about who you surround yourself with and who you attract to want to hang out with you. So if you're around like a bunch of people that are really crushing it and they have really good habits, and like I'm not saying you can't make that like from the bat be like, this is an amazing place.
Yeah, it's not all crabs in a bucket.
I'm an over drinker from Wisconsin, and so over partier from the bat, you know what I mean? So then my friends over partied. I had to after the Dragon, I had to be like, oh wait, I'm actually surrounded by people that don't really care, and they all are partying too much.
Well, that's a good point. I will just say in rebuttal that I've had friends out there that aren't big partiers that come back with the same kind of summaries. Yeah. So they witness it from the outside looking in, and they're like, oh wait, this is really egotistical, or oh, this is kind of like all consuming, or this is feeling like not like a chew you up and spit you out situation. Yeah. And people have kind of reported that. So that's why I was interested. I've been to Atlanta. I've spent time there, and it's very similar. Like, it's very ego driven. I will live out of my BMW to purport a certain image rather than buy an apartment. Like, I've seen people out there that do that. Yeah. And it's very strange that the materialism, to me, it just comes back to a point of like, how focused are people on the material aspect of things versus the intuitive aspect of things? Are they actually, do they have an intuition to try to connect with people, create great art, and to show love consciousness rather than fear consciousness and anxiety and all, like trying to step over someone to prop yourself up? I hate that mentality so much.
That's LA, because LA is like, there's so many people that it's like you can't choose everybody.
I don't know. I get it's the law of the jungle in certain ways, but just from me and my personal spirit, if I have to step on someone to elevate myself, I don't want to be elevated.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I just think that's a elevation that won't last, because as soon as that person's up from under your feet, you fall right back down.
It's a famine mentality. I mean, it's the problem with LA is it's Hollywood. Hollywood trickles into every aspect, because most people move there. They want to be famous. They want to be stars. And then if you work in the industry, maybe you have a little power over someone, like, or something.
It's probably a very intoxicating appeal, I'm sure. I guess I was like that in my early 20s. So if I was out there, because I almost went to LA in that area to go to college out there at 19. Now I'm glad I didn't. I didn't do it because my younger sister, she was having her second kidney transplant. My family was going through a lot medically, and I had to try to be there for my family as much as possible. So I made an executive decision. I at 19, I could be 1,000 miles away from my family when they're at their time of need or not.
Yeah, totally.
And family,
I was like, goodbye.
Yeah. Man, I was so close. I was literally, I had the paper signed up, and I was about to be goodbye. And if my sister wouldn't have got sick, I would have gone. And I wonder what my life would have been like, because I got into some mischievous shit in my 20s. I mean, I partied a lot. I tried all the drugs I could. I did things with caution and did it with a respect and responsibility to the, I never tried to put myself in the riskiest position possible. Like, don't get me wrong, I love to party, but I love to party in a way that, like, am I going to be safe once this all plays out tonight? Did you try these drugs? Same. Is that spiked? Is this going on? Right. I try to, I'm not that brash, but when my early 20s, you don't give a fuck about a lot of things. Yeah. And you're starting to be so curious about the world that you're just trying to try it all and dive in.
Well, that was me. Like, like, I'm a big skateboarder too. So like, I kind of came up in the skate scene. Oh, sweet. Like, all my friends were skaters and photo people. And then I moved to New York at like 21. So I spent like 7 years in New York City. I spent my 20s mostly in Brooklyn, living in Brooklyn, and then working in Manhattan. Yeah. And so, like, dude, sky's the limit, right? Like you're in New York now, dude. That song came out when I was like living in New York, and like you're listening to Biggie Smalls. There's a lot of like a lot of influence that goes. You become harder because you have to. You know what I mean? You really do.
What a time, bro. I still haven't been to New York. I kind of want to go just to see.
I'm gonna try to make it this year.
Yeah,
Miami's first, and then New York.
That's what's up. In Miami, if you out of LA, New York, Miami, you spent the least amount of time?
Yeah. I didn't live there.
Okay. And so
but I've been
what do you think about Miami compared to those two places?
I've been to Miami probably 15 times in my life. So I've been there quite a few times, but never like for a month or anything like that.
Right.
I am not a clubber.
And they're huge.
And I'm also not rich. So
and those things go together down there.
Yeah, I turned down a job actually once in Miami. Instead, I took the BB job and moved to LA. And then I always wondered what it would have been like had I gone.
Different.
But
I don't know.
I would have probably just started shooting porn or something. Yeah. So I got the fuck out, like it's just like, I don't know. It's like a club scene, party scene down there. It's very kind of bro-ish too.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. A lot of collared shirts and nightclubs. I'm not really into it.
Right. Yeah. I like traveling, even to like massive cities like that, doing work in those places, but staying in those places is something that I've now figured out getting into my 30s I do not want to do. I've come upon this precipice in my life where I value my peace, my sanctity, and my autonomy more than anything. And if my environment can't consistently invite that or allow me to invite that into my life on a daily basis, then it's not worth the energy for me to put out. But as an artist and someone that wants to connect with a lot of people at once, those are the spaces you go to do some of that. So I have no problem with being, wide-eyed and stimulated by all the wonders of man in these massive cities. But there is a limit that my spirit can now take. As a kid, growing up in my teens and 20s, I always thought that was the dream. And we got sold this romantic bill of goods around the big cities of America, in LA and New York and Miami, and what it's like to be there. And don't get me wrong, there are parties going on constantly. There is fun. There is stimulus going on constantly. But is that the best for a human being in the long run? Will that bring the best out of a creative in the long run? I mean, I've seen artists go both ways. I've seen artists that get massively stimulated by those environments. They make great party songs. They're like up and up in the world. They're getting signing deals, all this stuff. Then they crash and burn just as fast as they got into it because fast life, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, the white hot space doesn't last that long, I don't think, for any artist. So if you're smart, you're probably thinking about other outlets to begin with. Yeah. I mean, in the past, you kind of had to go there for the opportunity because it's like you weren't gonna
gatekeepers, right?
Yeah, you're not gonna connect with the people. Someone from Wisconsin who hasn't lived my life, like who wants to be a photographer, they can't just show up and then have the infrastructure to like get to these people.
Yeah, it would never happen.
Right. So it just doesn't, you can't just cold call people like that. It just doesn't work like that. But now we're in the global world. I mean, I know a kid who just moved back to Eau Claire who's got 5 million TikTok followers. And, he came back here because he wants to put the money into like a good cheap spot, and like he just travels out, gets his content, comes back. And I'm like,
that's what I'm trying to do, bro.
That's essentially what I'm doing now too, is like trying to lay roots down here and then just getting a self-propelled machine for being able to travel wherever I want to create content.
I think that's the next evolution for young creators now, and the generation, our generation, the generation coming up, is going to be, how can we live the most peaceful environmental lives while also having the most connected, wider reach and audience on the internet. And you can have both. Like, you can kind of have the best of both worlds, reaching a massive audience without gatekeepers, owning your masters, owning your content, having content ID, and it's proprietary to you. It can come back to you, the money, the ad dollars, whatever it is. But you can live on your own terms, and you don't have to be in a specific spot to do it. That's a really cool thing. You could be in a different country doing it. Totally. On the beach in Costa Rica or something. It'd be incredible. And that's kind of what I've thought about doing, getting my online work to a point where I can go live in a European or Spanish country for a while and just enjoy those spaces, bro. Because they're gorgeous. They're beautiful. They can bring peace to your life.
Yeah, I'm addicted to travel.
I love traveling.
I've traveled. I got too lucky when I was younger, and now I've seen too much, so it's hard for me to sit still. And I have a Patreon. Guys, if you've made it this far in the video, please go check out my Patreon.
Check out his Patreon. Y'all need support out here. We're trying to.
But what my big goal is I want to find 10,000 people who want to pay me $10 a month to subscribe to my page. And that way I can just pour all of that into content. I don't need another job,
Yeah. And it's coming. I think with AI now, we're all about to be set up where work online is about to be a whole new form of business that's not gate kept by any kind of labels or DJs or radio stations or anything like that. It's a totally different game for music, and then for photography and videography. That's a big one. I also wanted to ask, because we were kind of having this off camera with photography and videography and media spaces. So much of it can be taken, and just like with music, it can be taken without your permission, used to scale someone else's business or to help their business, and you don't see a cut from that. So how do you, especially in the landscape of photography, how do you keep photos from being misused that is your content? How can you make sure that these things are proprietary to you?
Well, I guess in a way I've been lucky. I've never ran into a company running anything of mine as an ad.
Without permission?
Without permission, where I'm like, you need to pay me.
Right. Without buying licensing of some sort or something.
Well, I don't know. I guess I do run into it. Like I just shot this girl, Sydney, in LA, and the post that we posted had Honey Bridget lingerie in it, and it got over 100,000 views. I think it's at 111,000 views right now. And they're going to run it as an emailer campaign. And she just texted me, was like, hey, they're going to use this as an emailer campaign. And I'm like, I was like, that sounds really cool. I'm like, can I at least get a contact there? Like, what's up? Send me some free lingerie at least. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, honestly, I would argue for a royalty there or something, right? I'm all about.
It's hard for royalty because it's like, it's not, I don't know. Like music, it's harder because once a song is a song.
Yeah.
Where like a photo of a product is different than like the product.
Well, and that was, I guess, that's kind of my question. Like, once you capture the product, though, is that photo now a part of a very specific thing that you did? Like when YouTube goes through this all the time with reaction videos, like using video content. I know that they can use a photo or a video or something, react to it, and then because they kind of put their own editing spin on it, it's kind of it's their new content.
Yeah.
So
well, it's like
convoluted.
It's the view hustle. Like you can screen record things, create pages, put those things out. If you can get the views on them, then you get the revenue from that page. And like if the content creator is not getting paid, that happens with a lot of podcasts that are big. Nobody cares about my podcast, so it's great.
Right. Yeah. It's like it's not a problem to
episode 9 here, guys. Let's go.
Come on, episode 9. I love 9. Numerology.
I started this month, so we're doing all right.
That's just I've been wanting to do my own podcast for a while, just content creation in just speaking reaction on videos, on issues. I'm developing one that's speak now or forever. And then the whole moniker is like, or the whole motto is like, hold your peace. Like, hey, everyone out there, remind you, hold your peace. Speak now or forever would be like the channel. And I want it to just be various content where you speak with people on things that are relevant and important. But, it's a saturated market now with casting and everyone getting their ideas and their voices online, which I think is great. Why not? Everyone should try to just do a podcast and
or don't. Just subscribe to mine.
Yeah, or subscribe to his. Come subscribe to mine when it's up. I don't know. It's kind of cool to throw the dart at the dartboard and see where it lands. And I think that some people, as they try it, they will find more of a knack for it. I think that's where like the greats have emerged from it. Like any art.
Well, essentially, you're communicating with another human.
That's all it is.
You know what I mean?
It's that simple.
You just have to kind of put on the blinders and.
Well, it's everything we do.
You know it's there, but
and we should just get better and better at doing this naturally because this is what we do in the background anyway when the camera's off.
Yeah. so many. That was the motivation for this, was the fact that like I did this book and I work with so many amazing people, and I'm like there's no reason why I can't pop this up and like do a photo session and like start capturing these. So I'm looking at it like, if you're getting into podcasting because you want to get quick famous, you're probably fucked.
Right.
It's not gonna happen. Like if you look at the ones that are famous, they're all on episode 500. Okay,
yes,
so like
they took their time.
It's just about like consistency.
Climbing the mountain. Consistency over intensity works every time.
Volume negates luck.
Yes. Yeah. And you're such a great candidate for this. And I was actually on the phone with one of my buddies, and he was coming here, he was asking me what I was up to, and I was chit-chatting a little bit about the context of what we're doing today. And I was like, yeah, I mean, he's a great candidate for it because he's been to all these places, he's worked with all these people, deep industry, fringe industry, all these different connections. Your relationship to not only your own life but the lives of others is really interesting content, and you could deep dive into that and unload all these stories and your personal emotions and feelings surrounding them and all that. And you got to give people an inside look of what it's like to be a photographer in LA, you know, flying down to Brazil to shoot with Rihanna, or running a whole department for a company, or being in New York for 10 years in Brooklyn, like coming up to make it and doing skateboarding shots and things like that. That's really cool.
We didn't even talk about London.
Oh yeah, you're in London. You mentioned
I mean, I guess that's what gives me the confidence, is like I'm not really living a lie out here. I'm just telling like what my life is. And then when I moved back to Wisconsin, I felt misunderstood.
I bet.
And so because of that, I was like, I need to.
I've always felt that way here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And my content is edgy for around here. So
that's true. Yeah.
I get a lot of people that think I'm some way that I'm not. And so I was looking at like who is successful artists. I have a lot of successful artists, and the ones that are really killing it are the ones that are being organically themselves and like putting you invest in them. Yeah. And so like I had spent 15 years kind of hiding behind the camera, and I was like, you know what, 2025, we're going live. Yeah. We're getting it out there.
Let's go.
And then now that I'm doing it, I'm like, I was just scared.
Yeah. Yeah, that's mostly what it is. I mean, even when I work with people that like want to record music and things like that, and they're scared to get behind the mic, and they don't want to, their voice is going to sound a certain way, or they don't want to sound dumb, or I want to do this. First of all, everyone's going to sound dumb or look a certain way, or it's not going to be perfect when you're starting anything, right? To your point, consistency, refinement, and you'll just keep going that way. And eventually, when you're on episode 500, you'll be so locked in. Yeah. And everything is just greased and just flowing.
Yeah, and I really enjoy it. So it's just like, I feel like it complements what I don't want to work a slave job. Yeah. And in the Midwest, if I'm not making this work, I'm working in a factory. Yeah. Because I didn't go to college, and I've only had a creative career my entire life. Yeah. And so
this is where you've invested, and might as well invest more. Well, thank you for having me here to invest with you, because this is a step in the right direction for me. I've been wanting to get my face in front of a camera more, not just behind a microphone, not just in an audio clip. I want to actually do more video content. So this is helping me break out of my shell too.
I appreciate hearing that. Honestly, I kind of am with the comedy podcast world, where I feel like mixing, like they do a good job of like kind of mixing and mingling with each other, and like self-promoting each other, and like lifting each other up. And I'm like, I just want to find the right people around me here too, and people that want to have, I don't know, you know how you kind of attract the people. I feel like people that I get attracted to usually will have a really great conversation, and obviously I'm hyped on like artists and stuff. So
it's that world, and I want to find the same, because in the entertainment industry, you find a lot of different personalities, and you know this. Yeah. And not all of them you're going to vibe with, and you're not all going to be on the same page energy-wise, but there are interesting conversations to be had anywhere. And then when you attract the right energy around you, you can build kind of a community and a supportive community. And I have that with a few artist friends of mine, like Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago area. That's really amazing to have when you kind of get a network set up like that.
100%.
And you'll just get into that naturally, attracting the right people, because you're just doing the work. Just do the work. You do the work, and the work shows up for you.
Yeah, it goes back to like great artistship, you know, like if you get it out there. Plus, you got to put in the work too. I mean, that's why I love photography. I can go to New York now, or I know people in Miami for that. I know people in London for that.
Yeah.
Like when I just went back to LA, I got all my old friends back together. We're all doing this.
Amazing.
It's like, yo, this is what it's about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually knowing those people to talk to and hit up, who you know, man, it's an incredible fun thing to have so many people to call or text in different parts of the world. That's how I've done a lot of the traveling, even abroad, that luckily I have like family or friends of family around the world, so I can go to different Latin American countries and hang out and do it really cheaply and do it safely and things like that, and do it with people that know the area.
Start performing.
Yeah. I should
get on those tours, dude.
I should, yeah. And the Latin market, I've been doing a lot more like Spanish in my songs lately. And, you know, I'm half Nicaraguan. My mom's from Nicaragua.
I just shot the... Sorry, I hit my vape at the wrong time. I just shot the... What's her name? The supermodel from Nicaragua. Miss Nicaragua.
No way. You shot Miss Nicaragua.
Yeah.
No way.
I'm almost positive.
Who won Miss Universe?
I'm
or
pretty
the new
positive, dude.
Because if
I could have my countries mixed up. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Okay, because my mom will freak out.
This girl had an amazing engagement too. It was kind of insane. What's her name? Maureen Jacobs. I think this is her, dude. Or at least I know she was one. Or maybe she's a different country. I can't remember. This is bad podcasting.
Okay, she is Nika, yeah. She was probably, she is not the Miss Nicaragua who won Miss Universe.
No, maybe she's a different.
But she probably
won
was a candidate.
some award in the model world for Nicaragua.
Dude, Nicaraguan women are gorgeous.
Yeah,
Latin
she's
and we're back.
Thank you.
No, Latin women are different, bro. And I was just down in Colombia last year. Have you ever been down to Colombia?
No, I just got invited to Colombia for the very first time for my friend's wedding, and it's like next month at the end of the month. And
Really?
I'm like, fuck, bro, why didn't you give me more time?
Oh, really? What area was he inviting you to?
I have to pull up the invite. I don't remember.
Because I was gonna say I got family down there in Guarne, which is right outside of Medellin. And
Medellin.
Yeah. In Espanol, Medellin. Right? So,
cocaine.
Pablo. But no, Colombia is an absolutely incredible place. I hadn't been to South America, and Colombia blew my mind. Like first of all, you know, California is known for the women, weed, and weather. You talking about the weather, and the women in Colombia are just different, though. Different. And the women, you show up and as an American man, you're not used to seeing like these types of women. Like we have a different melting pot. They have a very specific look.
I've done South America.
Yeah, you go down there.
I've been to Brazil and I've been to Peru.
Yeah, Brazil is very similar, right?
Yeah, Rio.
And you go down there, Rio, and they're all hot. And you're like, oh my gosh, these women are gorgeous, and they're all tan,
and they're not on corn syrup and
right. And they're actually eating pretty healthy food, and they're staying on good fit form for their bodies and stuff. And don't get me wrong, a lot of Latin American countries, they have so much fake, like, I mean, the Brazilian butt lifts, I mean, that's literally where I came from, right? So there is a lot of plastic surgery.
Has a thong on, I mean, you're going to want your ass to look great.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, I get why they do it. In Mexico, it was a big thing, but it can go way too far with the lips and the ass, because basically, and your tits, like, if you look disproportionate, girl, you went too far, right?
Yeah.
If your lips don't match your face, your ass don't match your
I'm not a fan
hips.
of surgery.
I'm not. But I get why women do it, and I can see when it works well, it works. Mm-hmm. But there's so much of it that doesn't work well. I'm like, girl, why? I guarantee you, men were.
If you go too deep, I'll tell you what I think. I think mental health problems.
Yeah.
And I go, you're so unhappy that you think this is fixing your problems.
Well, it's an insecurity, right? I get it. Like
I grew up in the model world.
Yeah.
And so like I've dealt with that. I've watched girls ruin their face over 5 years.
Oof,
and you're like, man,
so
it's like stop with the filler.
Like you need a therapist to tell you
that's the LA ego though.
Taking it too far.
Because you don't see that as much in like You don't see it as much in like New York, London, or like Paris. They're not botching their face out.
Interesting. It's a different kind of refinement. What kind of refinement do the women on the East Coast like want to accomplish to get their status up? Is it more about like how they dress, who they know, what kind of designer?
The East Coast is just 1,000 times more sophisticated.
Really? Okay.
Well, yeah, it's more aristocratic almost.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's more aristocratic versus like we're in the sun and we're gonna party till the sun goes down and comes up again.
Yeah. I don't know. Hollywood's always been kind of like the diddlers are out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though New York, like he's a New York guy,
right? I mean,
he moved to LA.
Yeah, and there's shiesty.
They all moved to LA.
They all moved to LA for
all the rich banker types are on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's kind of like gloves are off. Anything
I don't
goes.
know though. There's bad people everywhere. There's
speculation
good people everywhere.
Yeah, we're speculating, but there's bad people everywhere, but there are hubs around the world.
Plenty of assholes
where a lot of
fucking
bad people like to gather.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no. There's plenty of them out here, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to focus on good people. I've just throughout my travels, I've realized that like most people are good. Most people are pretty chill. I'm sure people, like everybody,
that's worth noting.
Things,
That's worth noting because I always like to talk to people about that because I have friends that have never traveled outside of the U.S. or never traveled around the U.S.
Yeah,
and they have such enclosed, and even in Wisconsin, small town Wisconsin, we deal with this all the time. People haven't seen outside the scope of their own perspective.
Yeah.
So if you get outside of that perspective, that scope, you can really start to see, oh, we have way more in common than I think we do, even with the people I fundamentally disagree with on politics or social aspects or this, and that. Wow, we have way more in common than we have different. And you do realize that people do have an affinity to want to be a good person, not a bad person.
Yeah.
Most people are on that
people
track.
want to love.
They do.
Yeah.
But we're all human, and
unless
we
they're
do
damaged.
You can get broken and lost and damaged along the way, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can become a beautiful mosaic that brings the pieces back together and forms something beautiful and new. And that's why I love that Japanese practice. What is it called? Where it's actually
where they paint it.
Yeah, it's worth more when it breaks, and then they form it with the gold. It escapes me, but that Japanese practice, from a philosophical standpoint, a spiritual standpoint, is so beautiful because it just shows in the material world, if you completely break something apart and you put it back together with a beautiful metal, a cohesion that sings and is profoundly beautiful, it becomes something even more valuable and more beautiful. So that's how the human spirit works, I believe, as well.
I think so too. I think that's the problem with people around here is that's the one thing the internet can help you with is you actually get to see it. But that's what I think the most benefit from traveling, you get to experience these other cultures and these other ways of living and
But body language is a big thing. I will argue that all day.
Like living outside of the U.S.
Actually go physically because you have hundreds of thousands of years of human biology, of human communication that has built within our bodies, and not only our bodies but our minds and our spirits to connect in a certain way, to witness things. Like I tell people this, you seeing poverty on YouTube is not the same as you seeing poverty up close.
Yeah.
You seeing it in person, you seeing a child actually, impoverished and desperate versus seeing it on one of those commercials when they're trying to get you to donate something is two completely different things. Yes, they pull at the same areas, but I will just tell you from firsthand experience, seeing poverty up close, and I traveled around Nicaragua with my mom for a month, and that's the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere next to Haiti. I've seen things that I can never forget because they're just embedded in my heart and my mind and my soul. Because
I went to some crazy spots in Brazil.
Yeah, in Brazil, same
where they're they literally are living in huts,
right? And you can't forget it.
Dude, I saw the most beautiful there was a photo of them somewhere that Mariano took, but like these two little girls they were like little supermodels in these like dirt huts.
Yeah.
In Brazil, and they were like half like white, half like it was crazy.
And I don't know what your experience was, but a lot of those communities are some of the happiest, most fulfilled communities out there because they're not focused so much on the materialistic things, and they're more tight knit as communities and families. Like there's plenty of brokenness, don't get me wrong, but I witnessed some of the most kind, loving people that never seen $1,000 in their lifetime. Yeah, it was incredible, and it totally flipped my head as a guy in his 20s from America that comes from this scope of prosperity and the land of the free over here. And we're really locked down and mentally locked into materialism. We're not really free when you can't freely love each other and the people around you, and things have to be fake just to make business move and profit margins. It's not about that. Material world is just, it's fake in too many ways, and you have to go witness it for what it is in person for you to really analyze this mentally and spiritually. Like, you'll understand what poverty means when you see it up close. You'll understand what riches mean when you see it up close too, when you're around really, and you've been around really, really well-off people. I've been around, I don't know about you, but I've been around some multimillionaires. Like, I was around one dude sitting courtside. He was from Miami, and he called up Scott Storch right courtside, and had me talking to Scott Storch while I'm watching. You know, LeBron's over there.
He's a crazy Miami guy.
Crazy Miami guy, right? And I was on the phone with him for a second because he's like, "Oh, you rap? You're on the song for the Nuggets? Like, perfect. Like, let me call Scott Storch, a friend of mine." I didn't believe him. He got on the phone with Scott Storch, and I'm talking with Scott Storch. I'm, "Hey, man, you're a legend in the game. You know, big fan of what you do, blah blah." But anyway, this dude had like 3 businesses, like 5 private luxurious homes around the country, one in Colorado, one in Miami, blah, blah. Private, he flew over there on the private jet, had all the money in the world, got a sugar baby there, all this stuff, right? And then he invites us out to the club afterwards, and he's got more girls showing up and all this stuff. Anyway, my point is that we're sitting around there, and I get to see like the loneliness and the desperation and the sadness in this man's eyes. Like, I saw it in his soul, bro. I mean, this man's in his 50s. He's got the hottest women around him. He's got a private jet. He said, "Who wants to come on the private jet tomorrow?" Blah, blah. All the money in the world. And I got to see I'll just never forget it, because that man.
No, I've been around those types.
Yeah,
for sure.
and from an American standpoint of social status and what social media likes to purport as success, you'd think that the happiest, or like, he has no reason not to be happy. He's got millions of dollars, all the women he wants, homes, businesses. He talks to celebrities and famous people all the time. Why isn't he fulfilled? Yeah. And that threw me down this whole path. Like, from then on, the last few years, it was like, I want to understand in depth how you can get lost in the best of what this world says is the best. Sure. How can you get so lost in that?
Well, I think it comes down to like enlightenment, unfortunately. I think some people, they're not as enlightened as other people.
But what does that mean, enlightenment? Does that mean enlightenment of consciousness? Because it's definitely not the material world. You can get enlightened. You don't have less burdens in the material world, and you can get everything handed to you, and you have maids, and you can have all this stuff.
I mean, I just, from my background, like, I know people that have sold their company for $55 million and like, or $550 million.
Jeez, like, so
huge dude. He has a house on Star Island and stuff, like, big dude. But like, I don't know, like, I think things that make him happy are like, you got to run for it. But then I also have met a lot of the kids that have really rich parents, like wealthy parents. And they all seem a little lost, to be honest. Because I think when it's handed to you, you have this anxiety like there's supposed to be more out of it all, because you don't appreciate the fact that you have it, really. Right. Well, because you don't know what it's like not having it.
Yeah, how can you naturally contend with the world when the world is your oyster because you have everything handed to you?
I've had no money. I've had no fucking money before. Like, where I'm stressing about rent, like, poor as hell. Yeah. So I know, but even through those times, I found happiness. Yeah. And so I knew that happiness never really depended.
Had nothing to do with money. Right. I grew up that way too with my parents.
It's just stress. Like, if I could have paid those bills earlier, I might not be so gray already. Right. You know what I mean?
You're not happy about the stress.
Yeah. But what I guess coming down to enlightenment is like, people, I don't know, they get set up in their habits and their rhythms a little too much. And like, you find that happiness, and then it's all about extremes then. You know, you're living, like, I know a painter who makes he's worth a lot. Like, I don't know the exact number, a few $100 million. And like, he's still like damaging himself with like using drugs, and like, everything has to be an up or down. Yep. There's no balance.
Yeah, I know a billionaire that's gone to rehab. You know, yeah. There's all sorts of that.
But that, I don't know. Maybe it comes down to like good and evil. Maybe it comes down to like.
Well, this is a good one, and maybe you appreciate this. And it just popped in my head. I think there's a great way to put it, that you can have all the resources in the world, but without the source, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
What do resources really mean without the source?
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone's searching for the source that does bring about abundant love and actually create the environment for happiness and create a connection and bonds between us and things in the natural world and things that are meaningful to us that don't just break apart on a whim, and they can't be taken from you. I always tell my friends this, like, develop character, develop things in your life that people can't take from you.
Sure.
And those things, like going to the gym, you were discussing before.
Yeah.
No one can take your body from you that you earned once you just built it up.
Yeah.
No one can take it from you. God himself has to, like, you have to die for this body to go away now. But you built that up, so you built it as an asset.
Hopefully. I don't want to get hit by a car and not be able to move anything from my neck down.
Yeah, and life is a crazy game, so we'll see what happens in life, and we're here, you know, in my opinion, at God's will, and we're going to see what happens and plays out. But when it comes to things, building true things in your life that are meaningful, people always go, even the billionaires say the same thing, because I've had conversations with them. It's family, right?
It's love.
It's love. It's love. It has to do with love consciousness and fear consciousness. And I was just reading through, or actually getting really into Thomas Campbell's The Big Toe Theory.
Oh, okay.
Big Toe.
He was just on Joe Rogan.
Yes. Did you listen to that
it.
episode?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you think?
It's amazing.
Okay, I want to discuss this with someone because you're the first person.
You're going to have to refresh my memory.
So you're the first person I've been able to discuss this with.
I'm going to look up when it was.
Yeah.
Because if it was the last one I listened to, I'll remember.
It was a couple weeks ago.
Was it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to just remember what he looks like. Hold on.
I'll just listen to Lex Friedman's one on the way here.
I was just doing that too, dude. I'm actually in the top 1% of Joe Rogan listeners.
I'm sure I'm there too.
0.1%.
I'm sure I'm there too.
Let's go. We can bleep that out. He's that old guy, right?
So Thomas Campbell started as an atheist physicist.
Yeah, I remember now.
35 years ago, developing this theory based
We're
on...
in the simulation.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a simulation, is what he retorts. It's a reality. It's a virtual reality.
Yeah,
but you can call it
virtual,
because a simulation insinuates that something is already
running it.
Well, it's simulating from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, but it's more. I accentuate it to a video game, right? It just makes perfect parallel sense with the toe theory. If you're in Thomas Campbell's Big Toe Theory, if you are looking at it, okay, we're created in God's image. We took that image, consciousness, and then in the original Hebrew text of image in the Bible, it means likeness. So if we're created in God's likeness, and God is the ultimate consciousness, love consciousness, it says in the Bible more than anything that God is love. Okay, so God is love, there's a love consciousness, and he established this theory as an atheist. So it fits exactly with the Bible. It fits exactly with major religions.
Sure.
The Buddhists and the Taoists and the Christians have it very similar to what they believe in their doctrines surrounding this. But you have love consciousness, and then it goes into an environment that's created like we do it for a video game, right? So it's very similar. And then we are spiritual beings living a physical existence, not physical beings chasing a spiritual existence.
I agree with that.
So that being said, it's exactly like human beings create video games. We create the landscape for the video game. We create the character in the video game, which becomes the avatar. Then you give someone a controller to actually operate the avatar. And it's very similar to the movie Avatar, ironically, where Yewa and the tree, and how everything's connected through the tree, and they can talk to Yewa directly by connecting with the tree and all this stuff. You know? So
it's very
it's very interesting.
Do you know Ram Dass?
Ram Dass, yes. Okay.
Spiritual teacher from like the 60s, 70s.
Yes.
He was in the LSD studies.
I'm not intimately connected with his work, but I know his work.
Yeah, I don't know if he really, I don't know. He's all over the place, but he's a enlightened spiritual teacher. Like came out of enlightenment through taking LSD and stuff like that. Yeah. And, he would always preach that kind of like, we are all one thing. We are what we are, that one consciousness. Like behind it all is the one consciousness.
Yeah. We're a part of it. We're from it, but we're also separate.
Yeah. We're having individual, we're all essentially the same thing, having individual experiences.
It's incredible. And I don't think the human mind computates or even it intellectually thinks this way. That's why it's almost something that for a long time, generations, thousands of generations have gone to intuitively discover what this all means. And then they've intellectually tried to make it make sense in summary.
Sure.
And it's very difficult to do. And we've came at it from 1,000 different angles. But that's why I really appreciated what Thomas Campbell came up with in his theory over these 35 years, because it perfectly explains all of our explanations together.
Yeah.
Like all of the human history of us trying to explain this comes to this singular framework that just makes sense. It makes sense in the physics, the metaphysics, the quantum physics. It makes sense in the testable mathematics.
Yeah.
It's just sense. It's and then
Isn't
once you
it
see it,
pretty wild to think about the whole idea about like things not generating unless they're like you know what he was saying, like how like if there's no need to like, he was talking about human brains, like say
yes,
like obviously it's there, right, but then it's not actually there, or he was talking about like things, basically reality rendering itself like a video game, right? Like so like if the sky's blue and no one's looking past that, it's actually not being rendered.
Correct, by that person specifically. If it's not being rendered by someone, it doesn't.
As long as consciousness,
right, does it actually exist?
Isn't looking at it
exactly.
Yeah.
So if consciousness isn't self-aware of itself, it's not aware, and that means it can't exist in consciousness because it's not aware of it.
Yeah.
At the moment, it could be like past or imaginatively in the future aware of it, and that's a different story. But it's very interesting when he talks about the illusions of the physical material world, because it surrounds this notion of illusion that, like what you're saying, the video game character is subject to the physical reality within that environment, and that character, like our physical bodies, if they're detached from our soul, and our soul is the player on the controller playing the avatar, you aren't aware of the reality unless you actually are focused on it.
Yeah.
Right? Like the consciousness has to focus on it, otherwise it's not really real, and it becomes real to you and the player. And then if you get your hand chopped off in the video game, your player goes like, oh my gosh, that just happened. And then you all of these processes start happening, but it's just a physical thing and it's different from your soul, but it's realizing that it's going on. And then if you can get repaired and you don't physically die or anything, then you move on and you live with it, and your character can develop new ways to live with it, just like a video game.
Wait like 100 years. 100 years from now, they'll be like, your hand got chopped off. All right, we're going to steal some of that DNA. We're going to grow you a new hand and put it right back on there.
Not even 100. I think we're way closer than that. I think
probably are, yeah.
Bro, they've been able...
In 100, it'll be like easy.
So I was just watching... Yeah, it's way too easy. They'll be able to replace every body part within 100 years. I think...
If you can afford it.
If you can afford it. They have... I was just seeing that. They had... basically, what do you call them? Not cyborgs, but... Cyborgs?
I don't know.
When we're mixed, like...
Cyborgs are human and machine.
Machine, more or less. So...
Or do you mean like...
cybertronics or cyber...
Hybrids, you mean?
Biology. Yeah, like the way...
Hybrids is like two animals.
No, not hybrids, but the way that they're able to now create fully functioning with your nervous system, like mechanical hands, for example, right? Yeah. Where your brain can
think. The Neuralink.
Yeah. But they're getting so good at it that now if they can reconstruct an entire hand that goes off your brain signals, they can reconstruct an entire arm.
Yeah. You might not want a human hand.
Exactly.
It's like, yo, check out this hand.
Right. Yeah. Think about the efficiency you could get.
Well, they're saying that about the human eye, actually. They think within the next few years, people are going to start getting eye implants.
I might need it because I was thinking about LASIK and I'm sick of wearing glasses and I hate contacts. So I might need it, bro.
I'm starting to get there where I need glasses.
I need some 20/20. Give me some 30/30.
I'm the last.
See like a hawk.
I'm the last one in my family without them.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to... I'm very nearsighted, so seeing far away is not great.
Well, shit, man. We've been at this. That was a pretty fun convo.
It was. Yeah,
we can keep going, or we could...
What time is it? We got...
We're at an hour 15 right now.
Oh dang, bro. We can chop it up
I was into that though.
now, later, whenever.
Talking about the universe, man, I could do that for hours.
Hours, bro. And
What would you get down on like?
we gotta talk about psychedelics eventually too, because we got a good conversation about that.
Well, how about this? Why don't we take a quick little pee break and then come back?
Let's do it.
Are you down with that?
Let's do it.
And we're back.
And we're back.
That was great. I needed that.
We're going shades? No shades? Okay. No
Wait,
shades?
I forgot about shades. Yeah, sorry guys. I don't like not wearing shades because my eyes look crazy.
We're gonna future it out over here.
There we go. Also, that light is so bright.
That it actually is a bright light. It actually helps a lot.
I know.
That's why I was looking over at you this whole time. So I need it. I'm just gonna stay locked in here. So, Max. I can call you Max, not Maximilian.
No, Max is great.
Okay. Well, you
Maximilian's too long. My whole life.
But it is such a stout name, though.
Unless I'm being cunty.
Maximilian.
I'll be like, no, it's Maximilian.
What's your middle name?
Anton Frederick.
Oh my gosh.
I just said it on the last podcast, but Maximilian Anton Frederick Menaker III.
Bro, that's epic. I only like my Spanish full name. It's like Miguel Santiago Solorzano.
That sounds sick.
Yeah, I just that's all I like. My Spanish version. My name, English version is not so cool. So Max.
Yeah, mine's too cool. I wish there was a bigger trust fund attached to it. I'm the third, so I'm like, okay, both my grandfather and my dad were egomaniacs.
The third, we should have some generational wealth built up.
I know what's going on.
Hey, we got to be the ones to change it. Let's do it.
Yeah, my dad's first generation American.
Oh, that's what's up. So where were they from again?
My grandfather was from Germany.
Germany, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
He came over here as a child after the disastrous wars and shit.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, my mom, first generation in her family to be in the U.S., but my dad has been here probably 4 generations, I think.
Yeah, my mom's a good American mutt.
Got you.
They've been here forever.
So I wanted to know, we were chit-chatting a little bit off camera, what is perfect for your podcast too, because this signifies more of who you are and the work you do. So in this book, Angles, and in all the work that you do that is more provocative and is more edgy, what attracts you so much to, and so much of it is the female figure form, what attracts you to the female figure as far as an artistic muse? What, obviously we all know as men and everyone and women across the world, what is more beautiful and sensual than a woman's body? There's really nothing. Like the curvature, the beauty, the exquisiteness of it, right?
Sure.
And just the natural animal kingdom is gorgeous.
Sure.
Right?
Well, I'll tell you. I didn't write the rules to artists. So unfortunately, every major artist throughout time, you can go back to anybody,
right,
worked with nudes.
Really?
You can look at the Romans, or you can look at Leo da Vinci, or Michelangelo, or you can look at Helmut Newton, which is the book we were just looking at. Yep. I got into doing nude work because my mentor was working on a nude book. And so my first experience doing anything was assisting my mentor who was shooting nudes for specifically a book project. And then I actually really stayed away from nudes for, I'd say, 90% of my career.
Wow.
It wasn't until I moved to LA, and then at the beginning of the pandemic, I was approached by a lawyer who wanted to tap into a market. And so there was an influencer by the name of Julia Rose, and Julia had launched a Patreon account called Shagmag. And Shagmag was like a downloadable PDF that her and her friend were doing, and it was doing $200K in revenue a month. And it was just her and her friends, and they would do like maybe 5 photo shoots with their tits out, and they were making a lot of money. And so this lawyer came to me and knew that I was freelancing. Well, the thing about Patreon is it allows artful nudes, but it doesn't allow sex work. So if you have any kind of touching or inserting or anything in the sex work world, you're out. So, but you can get away with like artful nudes. So like it's been like kind of the perfect platform for me.
Heck yeah.
But I did it because this guy invested into this. And so he was like, let's do a magazine and make money. And I was like, all right, fine. This sounds fun.
Yeah.
And then just having worked with the people I worked with in the past, I always approached shooting nudes in a really high fine art way. So like I never wanted any of the work that I put out to ever feel like cheap and, pornographic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's artistic. And that's what I noticed is that
And then my book also was originally going to go to Playboy. I had a manager who worked directly with Playboy. I'm actually a Playboy certified creator because of that book.
That's awesome.
But then they didn't want to do the book. They just wanted the digital content for the internet. And I was like, no, I need a table book. So I held off.
Yeah. Oh, it makes sense. That's what I like about the news that I've seen, or partial news that you've taken. There is that artistic element that tries to bring out the sensual, but also, just beautiful nature of a woman's body. And
100%.
that artistic style I can always appreciate, because yes, there's a very distinct difference between like carnal type pornography and then actually trying to be an artist that is, when you say edgy, I almost think like you're fluttering that edge of pornographic content without being pornographic.
Totally.
And some people would argue that it is pornographic, obviously, because it's showing body parts.
I'm in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I am a pornographer.
Yeah, you're like basically you're the biggest porn producer in Eau Claire.
I don't know if that's true, but
that may not be true. But I don't know
produce
that well.
Just so you know, I don't produce any porn.
It does not disclosure.
But
they would claim so, and don't listen to the haters.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't listen to the haters. And unfortunately, it's been the easiest money I've ever made. So then
sex usually
it becomes this weird thing of like good and evil again. Yeah. It becomes this like, well, do you want to be a dark force or a light force? And then it's like, because in that world nowadays, it's like with OnlyFans being like it is, I mean, I could easily work with 10 girls a month and be a millionaire by now.
Right. So do you stay away from going over the edge because it makes you like emotionally, spiritually uncomfortable?
Well, yeah, I left LA because it became too much about the nudity. Like during that time, I was like, this is not the direction I want to be known for.
Right.
Like I'm not opposed to shooting nudes, and like I just went back to LA and I didn't shoot any nudes specifically because I felt like that book put me too much in a pigeonhole.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to stop doing it for the rest of my life. Now I have other books I want to do. I'm just trying to keep up with the greats. The greats did it, then I'm going to do it too. And I'm going to do it in a way that I think will
tasteful,
hold the test of time. Like if you shoot something pornographic now, it's going to look pornographic then. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very true.
Like, I don't know. I also have like 8 nieces and nephews, and it's like I want to be able to look them in the eye and not be a creep. Facts. You know what I mean? Like, and I have a twin sister, so I've like, I've always had the highest respect for women. Yeah. Like,
same. I got two sisters and adore my mother, and I have a lot of mostly female cousins, and the reverence that I have for females is. It's a very high standard that I want to always hold as high as possible.
Totally.
Because, they deserve all the love and affection and protection that men can offer. And we need to do it in the right way. We need to do it tastefully. I'm right there with you. I do think that there is lines that you can cross in that. And I think many people do it just for the money or a quick buck. And they upend their own morality for that. And it's not good.
100%. Yeah, I think around here it's a little weirder too. It's like, in LA, it's like pretty guilt free because it's like
do whatever you want.
These girls are here to do this type of content. Around here, it's like trying to find girls to do that. Then you are the creep.
Well, and so it's interesting. I want to get your take because, like I said, I was just in Colombia and other Latin American countries, Brazil. You were in Brazil, probably the same thing you might have seen. Huge for OnlyFans content, right? And huge for porn content. And a lot of those girls show up unabashedly, unashamed to do this type of content. And they try to like even get fake IDs to do it before they're of age and do all that stuff. It gets pretty dicey.
Yeah, it's dicey in Brazil for sure.
Yeah, and those Latin countries especially gets dicey.
Sex work is real work. Sorry, I think it's probably legal. It's probably easier for everybody.
Yeah, I do. Morally, I don't have to agree with the lifestyle that someone wants to choose to live, and basically sex work or selling themselves as a sexual product. I don't have to necessarily agree with that lifestyle to also agree with the notion that you should be able to do it.
Yeah, the problem is the black market. So unfortunately, the work goes nowhere. So then the people that run the work are the real demons, and that whole world is run by demons. And
right.
it's like a dark world. Like you don't want any daughter, that to be going down that path. And
no.
that's the slippery slope of OnlyFans too. It's like you're selling your soul,
yeah.
It's, you don't have to, I mean, but then at the same time, like if that's the lifestyle you want and you're happy and you're choosing, it's just more, the dark end of it of like these people that aren't choosing to do it, but they're being forced to do it.
Oh, it's that is so ugly.
I mean, I've seen it in Miami. I've seen it all over the place.
Trafficking is a real thing. It is actually the number one business in the world, way above trafficking of drugs. Trafficking of humans, and specifically females, is a huge thing. And children, and it gets gross and deep. And people need to be self-aware to not ever be around things that are supporting those kind of systems. And that's why there's a whole upend in politics. How can we upend those types of things in American politics to make sure that America isn't participating in these types of things? How deep does these rings go? How where are people getting taken advantage of where they don't have protection? How can we protect these people?
I don't know, dude. Where's the Epstein list?
Where is it? It's a great question. Where is that list? Because
sorry, guys, we got a little. We went down a little darker path.
Yeah, we went left. Hey, but I'm for it. I want transparency.
No, I think it's an important conversation to have, and it does go hand in hand with like shooting nudes and like what that entails and like the type of stuff you have to deal with.
What's more transparent than showing your body on camera?
Nothing.
Not much, right? And they even act out to play a certain character on camera through porn and all these things to take on like a character to live out an experience for the viewer or whatever. But you are bearing a physical body that you're making subject to now being a product. There's nothing more transparent than that. So I mean, if you are going to be that transparent, then there needs to be other transparency on the back end to make sure that vulnerability doesn't get taken advantage of.
100%. Life's about balance too, It's like, I don't know, it's about balance. Cause I could see how that would be hard to get into if you're one of those girls to even then get into like a solid relationship moving forward after you're like really making money on that platform, unless you're just, double down on the sex work thing. I don't know. People want to do it. If you can get paid $50,000 a month to like show your pussy, like I don't know.
It's a big thing, and you go to other.
It's better than working in a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're willing to do. I personally, again, it's my belief that I think that women that go to sex work too quickly can be an easy road, and easy roads can lead to very hard destinations.
Yeah.
Easy paths.
Those are hard lessons to learn too.
The
thing is, for me, and like what I've learned is like sexual gratification doesn't lead to fulfillment.
Correct.
And so like there's a really great book that you should read. I bet you'd be really into it. It's called Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler.
Ooh,
and it's all about altered states and the altered state economy. But they have a chapter on like BDSM sex and like sex in itself and like what's going on in the brain and like why are people into this? And like essentially you're getting high, right?
Yeah, it's a dopamine hit.
Yeah. So you gotta, I don't know, like the older I get, the more I'm like, actually, like strong connections to people do really matter because you're giving someone your energy and that energy is staying with you for a period of time. And like, 100%. If you're just giving yourself to like, and men are savages, dude.
Savages.
I mean, we've all been a savage if you're a dude, like
there's something real carnal that's
part of growing up too.
Yeah. There's something carnal within men that we have to hold back and we have to put in check constantly when it comes to sex because it's like, it can take on a whole pathway of its own that can become very dark. And I think that sex and sex work, we're talking about dark pathways that can happen, that can actually absolutely happen with both men and women, but it can be so driven by men's trying to satisfy desire after desire to get hit after hit, to keep getting that high after high.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's also the societal lie, I think.
Yeah, very much.
And and
I'll say right now, full transparency, as someone who, as a child at 11, 10 years old, when Google first started coming out, and I first got to see pornographic images on a computer, mind blowing, right? We're at the,
I can still remember the first time I saw a Playboy.
Yeah.
And then I think about it and I'm like,
And for me, it led me, like I do not have a very addictive personality whatsoever. I'm, not really addicted to anything in my life.
Yeah.
And I've never had problems with addiction.
Yeah.
Cannabis is one thing that I really love, and that I've had a relationship that I've had to keep in check at times.
Sure.
And coffee and cannabis, you got to keep those in check.
I'm
once
addicted
in a while.
to cannabis for sure.
I mean, there's definitely.
It's not that it's like a physical thing. It's a mental thing.
There's times that I've been addicted, but what I'm getting at is that the addiction to cannabis, or the addictive feelings I had with cannabis, compare nothing to the addictive feelings I've had with pornography. So since I've been a child at 11 years old, I have struggled, like literally struggled, to stop watching pornography.
Yeah.
And other young men out there, other men out there, I know that you are struggling with this and you're dealing with this. So I want to bring this up as a uniform conversation for men to also address within themselves and with each other, that we can absolutely do better by not becoming subjects ourselves to this industry that wants to prey on our desires and our nature to make money, and then leave us with more gray matter in the brain,
addicts,
lower testosterone.
They don't care, yeah.
You get dopamine drives that leave you empty afterwards. You can keep busting as many nuts as you want and masturbating as much as you want to as many levels and new stimulations of porn as you want, and you will never find a point where you're satisfied. You just won't. And you'll find things that keep exciting you, but you'll never find
you just go darker into that hole.
You just go
that
deeper and deeper.
Dark hole.
So that's how, that's what we're getting at. Like the money, the power, the control, the sex work, the stimulation, it can just keep going, right? And that's where you have to be able to see something within a framework that keeps it on a moral high ground versus you just saying, well, I don't care, I don't give a fuck, I'm just gonna roll as far as down the hill as the hill goes, because I'll tell you, the abyss keeps going. And you do not want to go there as a young man, especially with pornography. It's the most accessible thing with the highest amount of dopamine output. They've done the studies that it's more addicting than heroin and methamphetamine to the human brain. They can literally do the brain scans and see that you're getting more of a hit than those hardcore drugs. So if we are out here just with
doodling our noodles,
right, 24/7 access with a smartphone at any point in time, that you can just go on and get that kind of dopamine rush and hit like a drug. What does that do to young men?
I don't know. Boys gotta eat too, though.
Well, hey, I'm not saying we don't,
because sometimes it's better just to log into Pornhub than it is to go out with that girl.
I can agree with that. I've had times
because that girl's toxic for you. You need to stop hanging out with that fucking girl.
Hey, I get that 100%, because there are times that
if you're waking up and you're jerking off,
right? I mean, I get that, because
time to set a goal.
Yeah, that sometimes you just need to get one off, and you do that. You go through it, and you can actually have
subscribe to my Patreon.
Yeah, subscribe to his Patreon. You'll see what we're talking about.
I'm just kidding.
No, you absolutely.
Also, stop spending your fucking money on OnlyFans girls, guys.
Oh man,
stop it.
Crazy. But
it's something dumb like $27 a day over the course of the year is $10,000.
Jeez.
Remember, save that micro money.
Man, if the way that the money machine works like that, again, sex sells. It's the highest selling thing ever.
Yeah.
Always. Well, because it's the number one job that was ever created. I mean, prostitution was the first job ever.
It all breaks down to your neurochemistry. Like an aroused man makes bad decisions.
Right. Yeah.
So then you make impulse things like, let me buy that. Like, dude, I probably shouldn't talk about this, but I'm going to.
Yeah, we could just go a little amount over time. It'd be better.
Let's be honest. You're not on my Patreon for the podcast.
Yeah, man. I mean, you hit it though, and we started this conversation like that. Sex and sexual desire is a business. There's tasteful ways to go about it. There's untasteful ways to go about it. There's ways that are way more morally aligned and ways that aren't. And I think I'm willing to always empower anyone that wants to get into a field that they're impassioned about, if they can do it with the right amount of morality and ethics involved,
Totally.
and not lose themselves or hurt or get others lost in the process. I think that's just the game.
The thing about sexy content too is, unfortunately, that shit scales online, man. Oh, man. That like the best performing stuff I have is sexy content.
It's just, you're back to neural pathways. This is an interesting conversation in many ways, not just in sex, but neural pathways are so powerful. They become instincts that we justify as feelings, that we then justify as behaviors, that just over and over again. We just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and before we know it, we're like shaking our heads like, wait, what did I just, my brain just went from like 0 to 10, then 100, then 1,000. It was just scaling.
It's like you go into that reptile brain.
You're
not even like thinking about it.
It is reptile.
It's just like,
yep. It's like that mammalian brain that the computing system just goes without conscious thought, and it goes straight for materialistic instinct. Yeah. It's just, I mean, you see a pathway, and you just almost go on autopilot. It's pretty crazy. You can do that. Like in a fight. I don't know if you ever got in a fight or something like that. All of a sudden, it's like flow. Yeah, you switch gears, and then before you know it, it's over, and like, oh wow, I had to go into animal mode for a second. Yeah. But that animal mode, it can be so deceiving. So yeah, everyone out there, just make sure you stay conscious.
Practice balance.
Meditate. It can be good, because the animal mode, you might have to bring that out in like a basketball game.
Remember, you are not your thinking thoughts.
Yes.
You are behind it.
You are observing your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And that's a big one. Everyone out there with mental health, I've struggled with mental health.
Like egomaniacs, they don't understand that.
They don't.
They only listen to that one like negative voice in their head.
Correct. Yes. That is a very, very important point, Max, that you are not your thoughts. You are the one observing your thoughts. And that is a very powerful position to be in, to then understand your next course of action based on those thoughts.
And you can't, obviously you can't always be there, but like if you can get to the point where you actually really do recognize that, and then I think it's easier to catch yourself when you're thinking in those bad, when you're letting, it breaks down to like the ego, the Freudian brain of like, can't remember, the id and
the id, the super ego, and the ego.
Yeah.
Those three parts.
Yeah.
And it was on JRE, I think Mel was on, and I was watching that, and he said, and it's a good quote, and this has probably been said by many before, it's basically like, your first thought, you're not defined by your first thought, you're defined by your first action.
I think that was Mel Gibson.
It was Mel, yeah.
Let's go.
And it was, and he got it from other people, and it's a very wise word of wisdom, because you will think all sorts of things in life. Someone insults you, you're going to want to punch them in the face right away, just instinctively.
Some animal shit can come out.
Animal shit. You're the first thing, I want to punch you right in the face because you just insulted my mother or something, And then you, the one observing that thought, the soul in you, the consciousness in you, gets to decide what to do with that thought, and what your first action is going to be is what defines that character that you're thinking about, or that you actually are versus thinking about. And then if that action is wrong, then you got to do that self-evaluation, that ego death, and actually dig into what is my true character, and why did I go to that first action? Well, maybe that shouldn't be my first action. My second action should have been there. Yeah. And then you got to kind of flip the slides a little bit, and that's the checks and balances of life. It's just we are all human beings, and we're going to have all sorts of thoughts and bad behaviors in life, but can you refine them?
/ do you want to?
Yeah. Do you want to? Can you change? Yes, everyone can change. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Different question.
Because I think a lot of people, they just sit in that kind of ordinary state where like they don't want to question it and they don't want to evolve it because it's uncomfortable, and it's so much easier to just live in. My bills are paid and I do this on Saturday, and I don't want to think about death, and I don't want to worry about the government. And
getting into
my God,
comfortability is a huge subject for me, and I talk with my friends about this all the time and preach this, that comfortability is evil, bro.
Yeah, that's what I see around here.
Comfort is part of the devil's plan for our lives. Because if you wanna be as comfortable as possible, I will show you a person that isn't evolving, isn't up to their potential, that they aren't growing, they don't feel satisfied, they are unhappy in many ways, even if they're not showing it, because comfortability creates this conformity that just squashes human potential.
Yeah.
And it just can't be that way. You have to contend with the world. You have to come up against it with the most uncomfortability in the most uncomfortable situations. If you can put yourself in them voluntarily by choice, and the more you can voluntarily suffer in life, the more refined you will be to when the uncontrollable suffering comes, you're prepared.
Yeah.
It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yeah, for sure.
And you have to be prepared to face the unexpected and the harsh realities of life. You are going to be more confident, more fulfilled, by the standpoint that you can better contend with the world yourself and contend for the world around you, or for the people around you in that world. And it's not a good idea to chase comfort. I think my life started changing the minute that I got over this idea that I wanted to be comfortable and happy. That is a lie. Happiness is great when you have it. If you come across it, appreciate it, be grateful for it. But happiness is a product. It's a byproduct of you challenging and growing and becoming.
Yeah.
It's not a
it's also a myth. It's not a steady state. Like it's never anything. It's like anything that's permanent loses value.
It's like good weather, bro. You just appreciate the good weather when it's there. You feel it. You can feel it on your skin. You're glowing in it, and then
also you can do things that make you happy.
And you can also you can put yourself in, just like traveling. You can go to an area. You can set up, do the money and sacrifice and time to go to an area that's a better weather environment for you. And then it's like, I can.
It all breaks down though, like, because you can go to a nice beach and be miserable. It's just like you got to open your heart. People like are so closed off.
No, I was meaning like metaphorically, like just like you can do something that makes you happy. Like I'm gonna go shoot some hoops or whatever because it makes me happy. I'm not gonna sit on this couch anymore and be unhappy. I'm gonna go do something that I know will stimulate me in the right way.
Yeah, you got to get the body moving.
Moving, mind moving, spirit moving.
That's where it only gets harder. That's why you see all these sediment people around, especially around here. Around here, the culture is like, it's okay to be big around here, and then the culture is like, just drink every weekend and go to your job.
I'm interested in you when it comes to this because you were talking about you getting back in the gym a little bit. You've had from all your stories, you've had an historical timeline of you abusing your body in many ways.
Yeah.
So what is this thought process happening for you to actually switch this and shift this and be like, no, I want to appreciate my body. I want to try to take care of my body. I want to try and strengthen it. I want it to be more capable and more willing to help me as I help it. Well, what got you into this?
I think it's more about like getting old than anything. Because I've always taken care of my body, actually. I've always been in amazing shape.
So you've always been in the gym or doing sports or something like that?
Yeah.
Got you.
I mean, by unhealthy, I mean like drinking 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week. Or something. Yeah, lots of binging, lots of like...
What about food?
Let's do a little cocaine and just stay up till 3 a.m. because I'm here and I'm at this millionaire's house now. It's now and I'm trying to live in the moment a little bit. Like I did a lot of like, I'm living in the moment for 15 years. You know what I mean?
I got you. Yeah. What about like food? Are you really conscious about what you've eaten in the past or now?
I'm like pretty nerdy about it all now.
I'm super into nutrition.
Unless I'm broke as fuck. I eat like shit if I'm broke as fuck. But
I got you.
Mostly I eat like good. I eat a lot of red meat, a lot of veggies.
Absolutely. And what's so crazy about our modern world now is that even the junk food and the shit food, a lot of that is becoming just as equally expensive as getting like a fresh dozen eggs, a pack of beef, or whatever. Like people,
groceries are getting ridiculous out here.
groceries are ridiculous, and if
It's actually more expensive here than I think buying food in LA was.
really,
Yeah, like
that's a red alert. I didn't know that.
I think so.
Really?
Yeah,
Like for what
like
kind
just
of products?
meat and shit.
Meat?
Yeah,
Well, they do-
specifically meat.
They do have. I mean, we have
Meat
a
is
decent amount
more
of cattle
expensive
farms out
here.
Really?
Yeah, I would get tri-tips for like $11-13 at fucking Vaughn's or whatever it's called.
Damn.
Ralph's. It was at Ralph's.
And I'm assuming fruit's probably cheaper too because they got better access to.
And you know, I don't
tropical
really
fruit.
buy fruit.
No, not a
No.
fruit guy. So you're more meats, veggies.
Meats, veggies, garbage, a lot of protein, eggs. A lot of carbs too, though. I have a good metabolism. The thing is, I went to the gym for 6 months this last year, really, really hard, and I got beefy as fuck. And then I took like 3 months off. Now I haven't been going to the gym at all, but I still been I still run like a psycho too.
I got you. Yeah, you look fit. So what'd you get to? I mean, what are you 6'1"?
About 6. It
About
says
6'1"
6'1" on my driver's license, but I lied.
Okay. So and what was that? What was the like your where you felt the healthiest in your life?
It was
At
probably
whatever
6
peak.
months ago, not even.
6 months ago. What weight were you at?
I was almost 185, 180,
185.
well,
Yep.
maybe 183.
That's comfortable. That's where I'm at right now.
I was the biggest I've ever looked.
Yeah. I mean, it's
But then you do 3 months, and then I drank like all of December.
bro, it's
Like,
crazy how quick you can lose it.
December was like, and then I've been doing cardio since then. I have to go in and renew my membership.
What's your favorite form of cardio?
It's probably skateboarding, but ideally, you got to skate for a long time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I just go for a run.
There's a lot of kick push.
I do like a lot of 4 mile runs.
Nice running.
I can do. I don't like running over 6 because my ankles and my knees will hurt the next day.
Competitive sports, you into them or no?
No, I used to. I mean, I played soccer growing up.
Soccer.
I played football growing up, but then I didn't care about anything I couldn't do.
Yeah.
So I got into snowboarding, skating. I cared about that in my adult life, and then
It's tough to play those types of sports where you need that many people involved.
like to me, team sports. Like if you're following a football team, that's distraction. That's what the system wants you to fucking do.
Oh, there's a bar. Hey, if you out there, you in the Coliseum, you a Coliseum goer.
I mean, 90% of the dudes around here are very into football and gambling.
I mean, I can't disagree with that. I do think there is an element of the system that wants to distract us with pure entertainment. It's always been that way since Roman times. The Coliseum was there. Now we have the football arena. It's the same action and behavior that leaders have taken with, the 99.5%, 99.9%. They've always, they say, let's what was it? Was it Caesar? No. Who said this? And maybe you'll know. Distract them with, bread and
I don't know,
violence or bread and entertainment, and
feed them cake.
Yeah, just feed them. And I'm totally.
That was
botching
Marie
that.
Antoinette.
Yeah, it's
they
basically
cut her fucking head off.
Oh my gosh, dude, I swear. Who was that? It was Henry the VIII or something.
Yeah, France, dude, crazy.
But no, it's like that. That's a good point. That entertainment, any form of it, and we were talking about sexual forms of it, and then you can talk about sports forms of it. Entertainment becomes this grandiose device to capture human attention, and it just can go really deep and too far, and then you get maniacs and fanatics and obsessive people, and some people build that as their whole like framework for sanity in their lives because they can't live without it, and it keeps them focused on something because they can't derive a disciplined focus in their life elsewhere. It's tough. I get that. Entertainment is so easy for the brain to attach to because it's manufactured to be that way.
100%. Honestly, the only reason I didn't is because I always had a goal. So photography just kind of found me. I don't know how I really got
there.
It
is.
but
That's the like the planting the flag moment. Like you have to have a goal to keep you grounded.
Yeah, it's like why? What is your why?
It has to be your why.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you do kind of like if you don't have a why, what else are you fucking doing?
And you may not have your why worked out on the way to searching out a goal that you have a mind or a vision on. That's very true. I found my why later on, even if I had goals set up beforehand.
Yeah.
But the goals will get you going.
Totally.
Goals will get you going.
Just drop my vape.
That's a sign, ladies and gentlemen. It's about to be dropped out of his life as well.
I know. You got any plugs? You want to plug anything right now?
Plugs.
Where can the people find you?
The people can find me.
This is some deep knowledge. We need to definitely do another one of these.
We're going to. This is just getting started. This is just us getting the wheels warmed up and the engine revving. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can find me most social medias. Pelly, Pelly. On YouTube is Pelly Music 101. TikTok at 12th House Entertainment. That is my company that I'm building as far as entertainment and content goes. You can find me there. My username is Pelly on top. Pelly Music on Instagram. And find me on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, anywhere you want to stream music, you'll find me there. It's Pelly, Pelly.
Are you playing anywhere anytime soon?
Not any live shows. I am going to just focus on studio work until I get into the spring and summer. And I have a lot, going back to the early conversation, a lot of content to get out there that isn't out there. Over the last 4 years, I have content that's still sitting in the vault, and it is the monkey on my back. Like, it is the elephant sitting on top of my neck.
Drop it like it's hot.
Drop it like it's hot, indeed. And
or move on.
Or move on. And that's kind of what I'm at this crossroads right now where, okay, I have a lot of excess content. Some of it is relevant. Some of it is meaningful. Some of it has lost its relevancy or its meaning. How much do I deploy? If something is 60 or 80% done, how much do I deploy energy-wise to get that other 20, 40% done? Is it worth it? So I'm almost, I've done it a little bit, but I'm almost going to do another round of it, some focus groups with people that I trust and send out. And you could be one of these people that, I send a certain amount of music to. Hey, bro, what do you like here? Or, girl, what do you like about this? And they'll give me feedback from an audience perspective that I may not have, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is one you really should, flesh out."
I'd love to see what you got cooking. Nice. My background's in creative direction too. That's usually how I help artists the most, is like more in a creative direction.
Good. Yeah.
Of like brand vision and stuff. Like my friend Sunny is about to put out her project, and the funny thing about this is I was staying in their she comes from a lot of money, but they were $10 million house up in the hills, Appian away. Spent a month there while she was doing her sessions. The producer was this guy named Radio. I think he won a Grammy for Solange or someone. He's a pretty big producer. But I got to watch, this was 4 years ago, so a long time ago now, I got to watch them do the whole album. And then now, finally, she's putting out like a 20-song album, and it's coming out as and then she's got this idea. I probably can't say all this online, but
it's a proven concept of process and timing and patience, and sometimes it can take that. I've seen artists, bring work out the woodwork that all of a sudden becomes something they can stand on and put out. And I'm hoping that a lot of my content that's older, I can get together and do a formatting that makes sense and get a lot of that out. I know I'm sitting on at least 2 or 3 albums worth of music that I got to get out.
Yeah,
and I got a lot of just so many beats and projects that I want to be working on right now, pouring my energy into, but I don't want to just totally abandon the old stuff. So I know that's where a lot of artists, they come to that crossroads and it hurts and you feel stuck there.
Yeah.
And I get it. And
you never know when you might use it too. I don't know. Like a good example is I'm working on my next book, which is 15 years of Polaroids. And I shot this huge body of work in New York, and it just sat
love Polaroids
forever. This book's I'll book a Polaroid.
Really?
Check it out.
Definitely checking that out.
But yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Now it's all kind of coming together finally. So you never know. You can always revisit things or just evolve. I think the problem is if you create things and don't put it out, then it's like you kind of wasted your time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't feel like I wasted my time even with the songs that didn't come out because it was like
A learning
I
process.
needed that in the moment.
Yeah.
It was
Then
a
maybe
step.
it's
It was
not,
therapy.
maybe it doesn't
was,
need to come out then.
right. Maybe it doesn't. And then some of them I go back and listen like, damn, I forgot I made that. That needs to come out. I got to put that out. That's part of my journey.
Yeah.
Right. And then you get upset because it's not out yet. So you can't beat yourself up. You do have to stick to the focus. I'm in the content release business. Try to get this out, format it, and get it out the best you can. And stop overthinking. And that's a big part of me. You know, I'm a perfectionist by nature, I think. I'm just OCD kind of tinged like that. My older sister is exactly like my mom is like that. So I have a history of this in my family that we really become obsessed and we want to get things as perfect as possible. And that can hold us back at times too.
Totally. Because some things is still you know, things that don't come out can't fail. And so I think that holds a lot of musicians back.
There it is.
And so it's like they get scared that like
insecurity can be a big part of it.
And that's where like Rick Rubin would say like it's better to like put it out and let the universe do what it wants with it than it is to like not have that dream come to fruition. Shout
out to Rick Rubin because that is straight.
Because it fails if it doesn't. It doesn't. If you learn from it, it's never a failure. So it's
true. And the flip side of that is I have put out songs that I felt I didn't touch enough. I would have done a different thing with. I would have put a different mix on it. I would have done blah, blah, a little different writing, whatever. And then that sits in my insecurities and annoys the heck out of me too. Yeah. So I try to strike this balance between am I confident enough with this project, this piece, that I'm not going to be haunted by it 5 years later.
Yeah. And I redid that book 3 times.
Really?
Yeah. It took me over a year to put it out.
I do a ton of editing, so I get it. And it's something that plays on some of your best nature and some of your worst nature at the same time. Yeah. But to your point, it cannot become true art that lives its own life. I tell people, get something out so it can live its own life. That's true. Because it does have its own resonance, its own energy in the universe, and the only way it can radiate that out is if it's shared.
Yeah, if it's available, you know, like my friend who only put that one single out that has 200,000 plays on it now. It's like if you had put the whole album out, you would have over 1 million streams. I bet.
Facts. Yeah, and the only reason that I am at this point in my career in music so far is because I did reach a point where I was way too bashful and I was way too insecure, and I was holding myself back, and all my friends and family and people that I'd let listen to my music, why isn't this out? What are you doing? And I still get some of that, but I'm talking, it was bad. Yeah. And I was really holding myself back. And then I hit a point where I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to care. I'm really going to try super hard to not care what people think. People care what think of me. The art is my art. It's my therapy. I'm putting it out. Let's see what happens. Yeah. And I got to that point. I really pushed it out, and great things happened. Yeah. Better things than I was going to say. That's expected.
Usually when things get good.
Beyond my wildest expectations, and they keep happening, and doors keep opening because of those small, minute steps that I took before. Mm-hmm. But I had the bravery and the courage just to try to attempt to take them. Yeah. And then that gave me more courage in attempting more. And it happened. So
get that momentum behind
it. And what I'll go back to is that often is like I got to learn from my younger self sometimes too, to be reminded like, hey, you remember that moment where you're courageous, when you're feeling this current insecurity? Like, get that out the way, because remember when you got that out the way and good things happen? Oh yeah, remind yourself of that. Right? Yeah. So I think as artists, you definitely have to do that, to remind yourself to get out of your own way consistently.
And if you're stuck in a pattern and you're like, I can't get out of it, then like mix something up. Go do something you weren't planning on doing. Like, go do something.
Do something. Just act, move. Action.
Inspiration will come. Like, you have to do things. Yep. But say you've been somewhere for too long, like maybe you do need to go take that trip for like a weekend, or drive somewhere, or jump out of an airplane. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe you got to sit in complete stillness at times, and maybe you have to jump into complete chaos. But it will create something.
If you're an artist, there will be a moment where you need to jump. Do not let the fear hold you back. Just jump and get it,
Yep, and I'm in that process right now in my personal life, Max, because transitioning, I had a really good job in the corporate world, and I'm working there, and I'm making great money, and I've always wanted to really embed myself more in the artistic process and who I am as an artist, and concentrating on the art and getting that out. And now that I made this transition out of the corporate world to do this more full time and to really focus in on it, like I'm like to bounce around. I like to get my hands and money from different ways, but art is really ultimately where I do want to land. Independent art that I own and that I can have an audience where I make steady income. That's my ultimate goal, and where I can do that anywhere in the world. So if that is my ultimate goal, to your point, at some point I got to jump. I got to do it harder and faster and braver than ever, and see what happens, because I'm not getting any younger. You're not getting any younger. Why don't we do this now? Yes, age is happening. I don't have to feel old at 40 if I keep myself in shape or do this and do that.
Nah, 40 is the new 20.
Right, literally. And we're almost like we're going to de-age with how things are going.
With a little wisdom, life gets a lot better, actually.
Facts, 100%. But at some point, to your wisdom that you're putting out there for people, you do need to jump, and you need to have the courage to do so, and better things will happen on the other side of that. You may fail, you may fall, certain things will go wrong, and actually all of those things will happen. But that is the only way to refine and to become different. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And the moment that you make something in your environment change, there will be a cause and effect, a reaction, and then you can have a thought, you can take an action and change, and things can happen.
Yeah. Or you can choose not to change, like me, and you can just be mad at yourself for months because you're still just clinging on to this vape.
I've been there.
But I am going to make that change because, like you said, nothing changes if nothing changes. So I am actually going to step away from vaping tomorrow, which is going to be...
Go. That's a huge step, man. I'm proud of you.
Rough, but it's also like mentally, it's just be a man if I can get over it. And move forward. Like,
it's going to be rough. I mean...
Well, it's like either be happy with your decision that you are doing it, or
remember why you're doing it.
Get off of it. I think I know why I want to quit, so it's like, let's go.
Keep that why. Yeah. Keep that why right here, and keep it here, and then you just stay focused on that why. And every time that you feel like going against it,
exactly,
you'll have something to contend.
It's more about the why. I just want to be healthy.
Yeah.
Also, it's fun. I do love it. Anybody who vapes loves it, but then it's like, I don't know. But also, it's about being like enlightened and knowing what you need to do to like be a better person, and then not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And partly, like what you mentioned, as a man, you want to know that this thing doesn't control me. Yeah. You don't control me. I control.
Yeah.
I was given that autonomy to control myself. So, yeah, like, it says it.
It's just habits, because I'm trained at this point.
I love one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is, you were not given a spirit of fear, but of power and of sound mind. And I love that, because I say it to myself often. It's great wisdom, because it means that you weren't given something to stay stuck in a fear-based consciousness in like a revolving door. Like, oh, I hate myself again for doing this. And you keep going down these rabbit.
My favorite one is, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Very good one.
I shall fear no evil.
Yep. And why? But do you notice how evil, or the tendrils and the places in which evil works in the world, is always associated with fear?
Yeah, 100%.
Fear is always,
that's how
even
it
in
runs.
the verses,
it runs
it's involved.
Off fear.
It's like it's fuel. So if fear is evil's fuel, then man, even striking out fear in the simplest ways in your life can start to unravel all sorts of evil in your own life that you just don't even realize is there.
Totally.
And in the world. So
I know. So be good, guys.
Be good.
Guys, we're 2 hours and 5 minutes in.
We'll be back.
We will be back.
At some point.
Dude, thank you so much for coming through today.
Absolutely, brother.
That was a lot of fun.
Pleasure.
Next time we'll have a better studio setup, but till we meet again, it'll last.
Up and up.
Lastly, but not least, if you made it this far, subscribe to my Patreon and have a good night.
Yeah, and come check me out, Pelly. We're doing bigger things in 2025 and onward and upward, so forth. And it's gonna be it's gonna be a lot going on. Lots of music to put out and content, and I want to do a lot more of this type of content. Just any kind of expressionist content. You'll see me around, and you'll see the dope people I get to spend time with. So I'm appreciative and happy that Max gets to be one of those people, and I'm very grateful and blessed.
Thank you, man. Wherever you're listening to this, I will add links to his music, so check it out.